Hey everybody, we had a little glitch, and so we're just getting started a couple of minutes late. I want to thank you all for coming today and for taking the time to be here. And I'm going to mute my phone while I'm thinking about it. My name is Amy Bryant of Parenting Beyond Punishment, and I'm really excited to have Kristen on with us today. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce her. And this is Kristen. Kristen Volk. I'm going to read her bio. Kristen discovered parenting by connection after searching for a parenting approach that would support healing in her family after multiple incidences of trauma in a short period of time. She found this approach not only prompted healing, but also provided solutions for everyday family challenges. With the support of listening tools, Kristen quickly became an empowered parent, leading a transformation in her own family. Her family's success inspired her to leave her 20-year executive career in Denver to become a certified instructor of parenting by connection. Kristen says, "I really enjoy empowering other parents and understanding how our children communicate non-verbally and through their behaviors. I used to be plagued with thoughts like, what in the world do I do with this uncooperative, controlling, crazy, beep behavior?" Responding with punishment, control, a lecture, or even saintly patience either left me exhausted or escalated into a power struggle. But I know that when I keep myself resourced and I focus on connection, the ultimate outcome is a deeper, more meaningful relationship with my children. My confidence in my parenting has really grown, and nothing feels too big for me to handle anymore. And we are all enjoying more laughter, play, and joy in our lives. I really love that quote. So Kristen is passionate about teaching classes, giving talks, leading support groups, and providing one-on-one solutions. She gives many presentations and classes in her hometown of Denver, Colorado, and her interests include finding creative solutions for challenging behavior, from things like difficulty brushing teeth, separation, nail biting, sibling rivalry, nightmares, aggression, homework, and more. And she also has special interests in and experience with divorce, which we'll talk about today, child and adult trauma, special needs children, single parenting, domestic violence, long-term illnesses, medical procedures, loss, and bullying. Kristen is a single mother living with her 2 children in Denver, Colorado. And you can connect with Kristen on her Facebook page at Parenting by Connection with Kristen Volk in Denver. And Kristen also writes articles and blogs frequently on the website of Hand in Hand Parenting, which I highly recommend you guys check out. So welcome, Kristen, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I just want to add, too, just to be clear, that Parenting by Connection is a parenting approach that was developed by Hand in Hand Parenting, which is a nonprofit organization out of California that really supports helping us to make our lives better as parents, to give us lots of support and lots of great, amazing tools to make this parenting journey very enjoyable for us.
It is. I took a class from them recently, and it's just really empowering. So I really love to support them. So Kristen, tell me a little bit about what interests you about this topic.
Yeah, so I'm divorced. I've been through the process, and it's not a fun process. It's a very, very difficult process. And I wish I did not have Parenting by Connection when I went through it myself. And many times I wish I had. I also have many friends who do have Parenting by Connection, or clients also who have access to these kind of support tools and ways to work with their children. And I have other ones who don't have this kind of support system. And I definitely see a vast difference on how people are able to get through and cope and support their children and their family. It's sort of like how, at least in my case, I can say that I was very reactive as a parent when I was so overwhelmed with going through this process. I was devastated, and I was just always like, okay, what's in front of me and how am I going to react to it, versus actually being able to look at my family and say, oh, this is where we're at. How do I elevate us? How do I support us in moving forward and look at myself as a mom or as a dad in a leadership role to support us moving forward as a family? And that's what I really feel like parenting by connection really can bring to a mom or a dad.
Right. Sort of that supporting each other.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what the experience is like for a child.
Yeah, that's a great question, and this is why we call it parenting by connection. And connection is it's a very important concept, and a lot of us think of it as an emotional connection, but it's much more than that. And that's what one of the things I want to talk about today, and that I hope can be a takeaway for parents, is this idea of connection. So children actually need connection in order to function well. They need our support, and a lot of it actually is nonverbal that we can give to a child and that they're actually taking in from us. And in fact, a child's limbic brain, and you'll hear me talk about this regularly today, and I'm only going to mention it right now, but sort of as an overview, and I'll talk more in detail about it in a little bit. But the limbic brain is what reads our nonverbal signals. And so a child is constantly taking us in. They're constantly looking at our eyes and sensing our tone of voice, how quickly or slowly we're moving, if our eyebrows are ruffled, and how we're approaching them to get a sense of whether or not they're safe in the world, because they're very dependent on us. They're very vulnerable. And so when a divorce or a separation situation happens, what that really means from our point of view is that connection is broken. Their sense of overall connection is really low. Or another way we oftentimes say it is that their connection cup is not very full. It's very, very low. So and that becomes very hard for children, because when connection is broken like that, it's harder for them to think well. It's harder for them to learn. It's hard for them to take risks. It's hard for them to be adventurous. It's hard for them to separate from their parents. And this is why we can see needy behaviors or aggressive behaviors, for example, too. All kinds of behavior starts to pop up out of our children. And in fact, the way we look at it is that the behavior that a child is displaying is really their way of communicating to us that they're out of sync, that they're out of balance, that their limbic brain isn't functioning well, their connection cup is low. There's lots of different ways to think of it, but that's a very important signal to us as parents to understand, oh, hey, my child is actually, by going over and dumping over the plant, they're not being a bad child. They're actually signaling to me that they don't feel connected.
Yeah.
And so this is a big shift in how we've oftentimes historically have thought about children, because we used to think that the brain developed in a vacuum, and we judged children's value based off of their behavior, basically. This is a well-behaved child and they're good. This is not a well-behaved child and they're bad. But now we have lots and lots of brain science, a lot of research that tells us that children's brains are responding to their environment. They're developing according to what's going on around them, and their behaviors are basically a response to what's going on inside of their brain. So if they're not getting connection, then their behaviors can easily go off track. And so we can support them in getting back on track and support their brains in being well connected again.
Right.
Yeah. And so the other part of that too that I think is important to mention is that we also store up our feelings. That's something else that a lot of mom and dads don't recognize. So when a child isn't expressing their feelings, or isn't allowed to, or given the opportunity to actually sort through and process big feelings that they have, especially around divorce, they're going to have a lot of big feelings. If they're not given the chance, then they actually store those feelings in their memory banks. And so and oftentimes the memory bank kind of gets opened up by small things that happen to them. So if they wanted the red cup and they're given the blue cup, or the same thing with a balloon, or say a dog is barking, or a door slams, or someone's talking, even a loud laugh from grandpa, for example, that can bring up stored memories for a child. And it could be, a button falling off of a dress too. These little things that we often, as mothers and fathers, we interpret that as being petty, and we can get frustrated with our children's pettiness. And when it's actually meaning that they're not able to think well, that they're not connected. And so that's really one of the main points that I want to share today is more about how the limbic brain works, and how the need for connection is so innate that we actually physiologically need that connection in order to develop well. Our children need that to develop well. And so divorce really, really lowers their sense of connection overall. And it depends on, some divorces are much harder than others too. It depends on lots of other things too. Mm-hmm. But so it's so important for us as parents to understand how we continue to provide connection for our children.
Right. I think that's so important. Like you talked about how we have to help lead our family into this new way of being together. And in understanding that behavior we're seeing as part of that disconnection helps us remain calm ourselves. And so I love that you're bringing that part up about their brain development, and about how we are helping support that by doing these things, by recognizing that their behavior doesn't make them bad. It just makes them, it's how they're telling us that they're having some big feelings and a hard time. Yeah. So now, then how can Parenting by Connection help parents who are separating on the divorce? Like, why is that connection so important?
Yeah, and so I want to also talk about like 3 areas that Hand in Hand talks about that are challenging for, as an overall thing, challenging for a child. And so first, there's this loss of the family configuration.
Yes.
And so the relationships might change. Some people lose friendships in divorce. Their home might change, or who is at home might change. Work schedules might change. There's schools and economic situations. There's all these different variables that are significant changes for children. And so that's one area. Another one is that children are oftentimes aware of the raw, unhappy feelings and the depth of those feelings that rocks a child's world. They're oftentimes aware of what's going on around them. And adults, especially with very young children, don't oftentimes understand that children are aware of what's going on around them, and that it is affecting them. And that has to, again, to do with the limbic brain, because the limbic brain is constantly, it is actually at birth, it is fully functioning, and it's always on. So it's always reaching out and sensing into how other people are doing around them. Mm-hmm. And again, it goes back to they're so dependent on the adults around them, and they are so vulnerable that they need to know they're going to be taken care of. And so if the people around them are in high conflict, or their mind is always preoccupied, a child can sense that. And so it can be an extremely scary and isolated feeling for a child to go through that experience. Mm-hmm. And then the third area is that children are really built to be in a loving and cooperative community. And so when that family structure sort of falls apart, that's really a huge loss of innocence for a child, and it's a loss of a child's ability to feel safe and to feel that there's a welcoming place for them. And so that's just another, I think, important part of understanding this experience from a child's point of view. And so when all of this is happening, again, that limbic brain can read so many things in its world as a threat. Mm. And so it really benefits the child to be listened to by an adult, because it helps to offload that threat that a child is feeling. Right. And that's actually one of our tools. I'll mention it again later because I still think that's an important one. But in terms of, your question about other tools that we offer, the first one that we always reach for is what we call listening partnerships. And this is the oxygen mask for the parents. And the reason why that is important is a lot of what I've already said, is that children can sense into us, and their limbic brain is always on. So they can sense if we're preoccupied with, I have to make dinner, and then I have to run to the grocery store, and then I have to go get a music book for my son for school, and then we have to work on homework. All these things that we have going on in our head over and over and over again. And then add divorce on top of that, like, I've got these legal papers to sign, or I have to do my financial summary, or, all the to-dos in that process, or all the strategizing that we oftentimes do. Our children can actually sense our level of attention that we are capable of, what our capacity is to be available to them. And again, this is the limbic brain saying, are you going to take care of me? And I have to know that every minute of the day. And so so anyway, so back to the listening partnerships, is that what we want to do with listening partnerships is we want to support ourselves, and we can actually take a very proactive role in doing that. And so what Hand in Hand offers is this great format to actually offload our own tensions, our own worries, our own fears, and it's even things like, my ex-wife is driving me crazy, or this person is a bad person, or saying the things to a caring person that can support us in offloading what's hard for us and what hurts, so we can actually grow our own capacity in our mind to be supportive to our children, and to be present for our children. And so the way listening partnerships works is basically you can do it with 2 people, or you can do it in a group as well, but I'll explain more about 2 people. You can do it on the phone, or you can do it in person, and you basically split up the time. So if you and I had 30 minutes, we would split up the time and say, okay, how about you take 13 and I take 13 minutes? We use a timer, and then I'd say, okay, go ahead and go first, Amy, and let you talk for 13 minutes about what's hard in your life. And I just listen. I don't try to give you advice. I don't try to fix anything. I don't compare your situation to anyone else's. So I don't say, oh, my cousin, just went through that experience with her husband too, and this is what she did. You don't compare anything, and you also don't refer to anything said in a listening partnership. So you don't refer to it within the listening partnership. So when a person is done, you wouldn't say something like, oh, I have some ideas on that, and I really think you should do this, or even, oh, my son did that in the grocery store too, and now I'm going to talk about that same thing, or an experience I had in the grocery store too. You would actually say, just start in with your own issue. You don't actually try to tie them together, if that makes sense. And by referring, because that's actually it makes it complicated for this to develop the safety that's needed in a listening partnership. And so so you don't do any kind of advice or anything like that in that time, and it really helps, and you really try to focus too on how you feel about things, how your own childhood was as well in these situations, and it's really all about learning to express what's hard so that you can become more resourced and you can be more available to your children and more supportive to your children, which is a huge thing. I have a friend who, well, actually she's a friend now. I met her through Parenting by Connection. She started taking my classes, And she actually she's on her third building emotional understanding class with me, and she did a study group with me, and she just focused initially on the listening partnerships for parents to support herself through the hard process rather than learning the tools
Right.
that are parent-to-child tools, because she recognized the importance of herself being able to just get through this and have support. And it was a huge, huge benefit and help to her to be able to do that.
Wow. Yeah. We did some of the practicing on the listening partnership. Did you talk a little bit about how it works? I can't.
So yeah, it's well, I guess you mean in terms of like an anecdote, or?
Well, like, well, an anecdote would be great, but also even, I understand the concept of when we're able to offload our stuff, it's not sort of mixing around in our heads anymore, right? Which helps us be present. Yeah, an anecdote I think would be good. It would maybe help clarify or solidify it.
Okay. So, well, I do want to say too that when we're relieving ourselves of feelings,
Mm-hmm.
it oftentimes looks like laughter, tears. It can be shaking, heat too. If we have lots of heat around something, that also is how we expel our emotions. And it can even look like a tantrum, or yawning is actually an expression of, it's releasing physical tension. And so when we can do these things, it really helps us, to release these tensions that we have and these big emotions that we try not to address for the most part. But when we can have this safe place with a caring listening partner, then it really helps us to be able to be present with our children. And the listening partner, too, again, I had said that they just strictly listen, and which is accurate, but they also sort of hold us in a space of remembering our goodness, remembering that we're good people, and that we're trying our best. And that's really supportive in that process, so that I know if I'm saying, I was so angry at my son for hitting my daughter or something like that, and I yelled at him, that this person isn't going to say, well, that was stupid. What's wrong with you? They're actually holding me and knowing that I can do better than that. Right. But I can still talk about it, and I can still feel my own disappointment in myself about it, but be held up and supported in a way that's, helping me to become bigger and to keep trying harder, because I know I can, and I know someone else believes that I can do that too.
Yeah.
So, and then just an anecdote to share. I mean, I do listening partnerships a lot. And, relative to divorce, I'll say that, like, I did a lot. I found parenting by connection after I was divorced, but we still had lots of big feelings about things around that for quite some time, and my children still wish we all lived together. And one of the big challenges was when we were transferring our children back and forth from one home to another, and it took a long time. This transfer process, and the kids were they were expressing their big feelings. I didn't know how to handle it. My former husband was there, and so I just had weird feelings about responding to my kids in front of him and how to handle situations, and I never knew if I was in charge or he was in charge, and it just was all a big mucky mess. And so what I did is I started by, I just knew it had to change. I had no idea what it was going to look like, but I knew it had to change. And so I just started with listening partnerships, and I worked on, my upsets around, my kids, why are they so crazy? and I don't know how to handle them, and I don't know what to do, and even just just expressing that I don't know what to do and my sadness around that I don't have the skills was helpful to work on. And also just how to work with my ex-husband. Like, we're not really a team. I don't know how to talk to him. We're not talking very much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to work with him, and so I could really cry about how sad I've been on, actually through the whole process of, losing what we once had, and the hard parts of our relationship too that were hard, that never got healed.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I worked on that, it really affected my own ability to think, and that's what listening partnerships provide too, is when we get listened to in this way, we tap into our own inner wisdom, and our own thinking gets better. And so I was able to start having all these ideas about what I should do. And I was able to write a heartfelt email to my former husband about, I'm sure this isn't working for you. I know it's not working for the kids, and it's not working for me. Can we really work together to create something that is helpful to everybody? And then we started a dialogue, and I had lots of ideas, and he had ideas as well, and we came up with a plan that really worked, and it shifted the whole transition struggles that we were having. And I could not have done that, I am sure, without listening partnerships.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. The theory, I think, is that when you're able to unload, you create space in yourself, which allows, like you said, to sort of access that inner wisdom.
Yeah.
And then what an empowering thing for you guys to be able to find a way to work together towards a common goal for your kids.
Yeah. Yeah, and another example, like right now, that I'm actually working on is, all children have a desperate need for their parents. I mean, this is part of them being hardwired to connect with us.
Right.
And especially during our divorce, I mean, my daughter has an extreme version of that right now because I was not always available to her when we were getting divorced. I was kind of in my own head, worried about everything, and very distraught and very confused, and so I wasn't always available to her. Mm-hmm. And it shows up now in her behaviors and in her neediness, and it's been a challenge for me to figure out, how do I do that, work on that. And so again, I'm starting with listening partnerships. And so I talk about, in my listening partnerships, and I have multiple of them, just that's why I use the listening partnerships, and it's helpful to have several, and you can schedule them, like I schedule them on a regular basis. Like I have 3 a week actually that are regular, and then I have other people who I can do them with randomly too, who can do things kind of spur of the moment. But to get started, I would just recommend trying something once a week with somebody until it feels more comfortable with you, and trying to schedule, like when I first started, I scheduled something with a friend for 6 weeks. Let's just try it, and then we evaluate it at the end of 6 weeks, and we determine if we feel like it's helpful or not. I think that's a good way to get started. But so I've worked on just, how crazy I feel when my daughter is desperate that I have to be there to, help her change her clothes when she's 8 years old, or, just how frustrating, like I'm trying to make breakfast and lunch at the same time and get my kids ready for school and get myself ready, and then I have to stand there and help my daughter just stand there so she can get dressed. And I know that is stored hurt, it's stored desperation that we talked about before, and so I started with listening partnerships, and then I also talked about too my own desperation for my own mother and my father, and what that looked like, and what a challenge and struggle that was for me to get, the attention and the warmth and the care that I wanted. And I've cried a lot about that, and I've trembled, and I've gotten really hot, and there's lots of sadness about that, and fear around being alone so much. And so it's been, I'm starting, and it's one I started in the last week or two, and I'm starting, even though I haven't even implemented the tools yet, I'm actually starting to see a shift between my daughter and I, just because I'm working on my end of it,
Right.
because we're so intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
Our emotions are so intertwined, and a lot of that is because of that limbic brain, again. And because, you know, she does something needy for me, and that triggers my own stored emotions that are locked away, and I respond in a certain way, and we start to have these patterns that are very predictable, and we get stuck in these patterns. But if I shift how I think about things, and I've worked on what's hard over here with a caring listening partner, then I actually come to the situation a different person. And she can sense that. Her limbic brain senses that, even though I don't say anything to her, I don't tell her it's going to be different now or anything like that. I just approach it differently. And all of a sudden, she's starting to shift. And I will still use hand-in-hand tools, but it really does work that way when we can come to a situation with a different perspective and different within ourselves, and our inner experience is different, then it affects our children. But
I know when I'm in a better space, it shows in my daughter. We have one question. Angela asks, I talk to people regularly about my situation. Are listening partnerships more beneficial than talking with friends, relatives, or therapists? Is the structure of the conversation the important part?
That's a great question. So, you know, what I would say is that there's value in all of that. I mean, it's great to have friends to talk to, and if you're in therapy, it's probably very valuable to you. I have found huge benefit in the structure, and the structure is very important in the listening partnerships. And it's a different scenario when it's peer-to-peer, and you're not being given advice, because really it's very empowering, and it's the most empowering situation I have ever found, actually, for myself, because it's someone's not trying to fix me, and they're not telling me what to do, and I know that's going to be the case. I can have my own experience and find my own answers, and that person trusting me to be able to do that helps me to get there too. And so it happens over and over and over again. It's like, oh, I know what to do, and I'm completely capable of doing this. And so that structure is very important. Is very important. And also, I find huge value in listening to someone. It's that sharing of that peer-to-peer support in that structure that can be hugely valuable as well. So when I listen to someone else, I recognize, wow, I'm not the only one with a crazy life. And it's really hard for somebody else too. And okay, maybe my problems aren't so bad. and I actually learn from other people going through this whole process of offloading their feelings, finding space within themselves to find the solutions that are workable for their unique family situation is just like, wow. It really uplifts me as well as a mother and as a listening partner. To share in those experiences is extremely powerful. So, and with friends, conversations can kind of go on and on and on oftentimes. And again, I find value in that. But I also, in the listening partnership, it's sort of like, you know, if I'm having a hard day, I can go, okay, I'm not going to worry about it because I have a listening partner tomorrow. I'm doing my talk there, and I can really get into it, and I can save it for that time, for example. And then also, it's like, I don't like to be a complainer. I think most people don't like to be a complainer. We want to be loving, and we want to receive love too. And so by having this space where I just get to like rah, 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 and then I'm done. It's like, oh, I'm done. now I have this more capacity to be more loving and to be more kind and to be more patient, and I can go and do that. And it's sort of like this separate world that I have that allows me to function better as a parent. And I don't have to, it's not ruminating. I find that thoughts are not ruminating throughout my mind as much as they used to by practicing this on a regular basis.
Wow. So I think that addresses it. There's one other question here. I'm sorry, I'm still sort of learning the Q&A part.
No worries.
This is a question this woman asks, or this participant asks. A mom's 12-year-old son is very angry with mom for the divorce. Mom has done special time and stay listening and listening partnerships. Son cannot show anything but complete disrespect and animosity. How can mom help son to offload feelings and reconnect?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. The way I think of it, in order for us for anybody to offload feelings, a safe environment needs to be created. And so it sounds like this mom is doing a great job of creating safety, but it also, by listening to the question and like the behavior that the son is displaying, it really sounds like the son needs more safety. And so in a divorce situation, what I would also say, and we'll talk about, just so the audience knows, we'll talk about special time here soon, is that you really, in my view, need to use all of the tools that Parenting by Connection has. And there's actually 4 parent-to-child tools. And then there's 6 total. So there's 4 parent-to-child, and then there's 2 parent-to-parent support tools. One is the listening partnerships, and then the other one is called a resource group, when you do it in a group format. And what I would say to this mother is she's doing an amazing job, but she should really work on all 4 of the tools. So she should add to that the play listening and also setting limits. And the play listening is, like in my family, this wasn't working so great, Parenting by Connection, until I became adamant about becoming great at playing with my kids. It was a huge struggle for me. So, and I know a lot of parents struggle with being playful, because when your child's being defiant and they're being disagreeable and they're not wanting to participate and they're angry, the last thing we want to do typically is to be playful. And so, but with both my children, but particularly my daughter, being playful and laughter releases tension. It creates connection. It helps a child to feel capable. It helps them to feel loved. And I mean, it's how they practice. It's how they understand the world around them as well. It's incredibly powerful. And there's a great book called Playful Parenting by Lawrence Cohen that is an amazing read. I would highly recommend it. Hand in Hand also has a booklet called Play Listening. So that's our play tool. And you could learn, the formula basically is to follow the laughter. So you do something that makes your child laugh, and then you give them the more powerful role. So, you know, they're the stronger one and you're the weaker one, and you're more feeble, you're less capable, and yeah, and lots of like wrestling and roughhousing. My son and I wrestle every day. Every day we're, you know, and the form changes. Right now it's wrestling on his bed right before bed, and it's not as rough and as aggressive as it used to be. It's sort of just this pushing, like we're kind of pushing into each other, and it's soft and gentle, but we kind of roll around and push each other, and it's really quite lovely. And it really fills a child's need to like feel you in every cell of your body. It's so helpful that way. And so I would strongly, encourage this mother to like learn the other tools as well, because they're all in a situation where there's been this, there's lots of stored anger, and the divorce has been really hard on everybody. You really can't leave out any of the tools.
Yeah. It's, I love, I think it's so true, Kristen, that sometimes as we get older, our play muscles get really weak. And I love that you said, like, I just am determined that I'm going to do this. Because we know that's children's language, that they learn through play, that they express themselves through play, that they let us know how they're feeling even through play. And it's so powerful.
Yes.
And that example is great, wrestling with your son.
Yeah, and when I first started play listening and wrestling with him, what would oftentimes happen is that we would start wrestling, and then because he had all these big feelings and stored things, he would do something really hurtful. He would whack me in the face or knee me, or kind of things that are outside of the appropriate rules of wrestling, so to speak. He would hurt me, and so I would set a limit. And so that's how the tools work together too. So the laughter breaks up tension, and it's sort of like a doorway into a child's deeper feelings too.
Yeah.
So something would come up for him. He would do something that would, he'd try to hurt me, because I'd be able to predict this. He would try to hurt me, and then I would set a limit, and I set a limit by bringing the limit. I actually would put my hand on his hand or my hand on his foot, and I'd say, "No, no, kicky foot, no, no, kicky foot," and then that really allows a child's emotions to come up. So he would actually start to cry or shake in that moment, and then I would move in and I would listen to his feelings, and this again goes back to the limbic brain. Where these feelings have really flooded his limbic system, and he can't think well. And in order for a child to get back into balance in their brain, and to be able to think well again, they need to offload these feelings. And so I would move in, and I would well, we already were close, but I would offer lots of eye contact, lots of warmth, and I would say something like, "Sweetheart, I'm right here. I'm right here. And I'm sorry it's hard." I wouldn't say much because the limbic brain is reading the nonverbal cues, and the nonverbal cues are what's allowing him to offload his big feelings about things. So then he could get back into balance, and I knew he was back in balance because then he would start to wrestle again with me. So we would go through this rolling activity that was so powerful for him. And really, really a healing scenario. And it's how he felt safe, too. And so part of this process is learning to read our children and understand that, every behavior that they do is really trying to communicate to us something about what they need. And so learning that language, and whether it's play or whether it's being off track or whether it's crying, learning that language is so important for us as mothers and fathers to really figure out how to address what's going on and move our family forward. And support our children, to heal their emotions, to heal what's been hard in their lives.
Yeah. So you talked about the play listening.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about like the special time?
Yeah.
I just want to say we have it's about 12 till 1. So I'm happy to go over. I was just trying to remember some of the other things that I know you wanted to.
Sure. And where were we going to go till 1 o'clock, and then Q&A after that?
Yes, for anyone who can and is able to stay. Otherwise, if you can't stay, you can listen to it on the recording. So.
Okay. All right. So that's great to check in with time. Yeah, I'm surprised this goes so fast.
It goes so fast.
So there's two things I want to talk about. One is special time, and another thing I want to explain a little bit more about the limbic brain and how I think of it anyway. Because it's so important to understand that. And I've already mentioned it quite a few times, but the way I think of it sort of is like, as an adult, if we're walking down a country road and we see a dog coming towards us, a stray dog, we sort of go on alert. And we're looking for, is the dog's the hair on the back of its neck standing up? Is its tail sticking straight out? Is it baring its teeth? Is it barking? Is its head low? That the posture of an aggressive dog, for example. And we're looking for that on one side, and then we're very alert to reading the dog's signals. And the dog might be approaching us with a wagging tail, with panting along and floppy ears and really relaxed posture, and coming up to us kind of bounding along. And we know that signals to us that, oh, this is a happy, friendly dog and probably wants to play with us. And that's how I kind of think of the limbic brain. Is like a child is, again, it's on 24/7, and it's capable from birth, and it's always reading every signal. Even when a child's not looking at us, they can hear our tones of voice and how fast and slow we're moving, and it can really sense into if we're that, very playful, fun, relaxed person, or if we're more a preoccupied, challenged, frustrated person. And because they're so dependent on us, they respond accordingly. And if you want to do a test of that, you can, get your children in a situation where they seem to be happy and they're playing independently, and then go pick up the phone and start to make a phone call. And you really don't have to test this, because most of us have the experience of knowing that, when we picked up the phone to dial, everyone was fine, but by the time the other person on the other end got on the phone and we started talking to them, our kids were screaming or fighting or breaking toys or moving things around or calling for us. And that's because we've done a small break in connection, which is easily repairable, but they felt us move away from them. And for me, like, that's one of the biggest takeaways today that I want parents to have, is just understanding that how sensitive and powerful that limbic brain is of our children to sense what's going on in their environment. And that we as parents have the ability to repair these broken connections for our children. And that's where we become empowered, and being a family leader is so important. So to get into special time, this is also one of our tools. So we talked very briefly, I know, about, stay listening is when you move in close to your child and you give them warmth and eye contact and you listen to their big feelings. And out of that might also come, things like, I hate being with you, in a divorce situation, or I hate you, Daddy, or, just like, you don't cook like Mommy, or just the things that are unfair to the child, some things that might be hard for us to hear, but it's still the child's experience, and it's still supportive and helpful for them to offload those hurts fully, so that they can think again and that they can function well. We talked about play listening, which is giving the child the more powerful role, and then we also briefly talked about setting limits, where you actually bring the limit because the child can't think well in that moment. So by giving them a verbal stop, throwing the ball against the door, you actually bring the limit. So then our fourth tool, parent-to-child tool, is special time, which is actually a very critical tool, and I would say, one of the most important tools in terms of, it's a proactive tool in terms of lifting a child's sense of safety and connection in the world and in their life, so to speak. So we oftentimes call it a connection vitamin, or filling their connection cup. So when we talked about a divorce will deplete their cup and it lowers the level of what's in their cup of connection, where special time actually fills up their cup. So it's really important for them to have something like this. So what special times looks like, it's a finite amount of time. So say you have 5 minutes or you have 20 minutes. You would announce to your child, sweetheart, I have 20 minutes. We're going to do special time, and I'll do anything you want. And you let the child decide what they want to do, and you let them completely lead the play and make all the decisions and the choices on the play. And your role as the parent is to delight in everything that they do, and delight in their play, and delight in what they do. So you're not trying to give them life lessons, which we love to do as parents. So you're not like, if your son is, wants to play baseball and he's sitting there at the ready to bat and he's holding his bat all funky, you don't say like, oh, choke up or fix your hands this way. You let them do it the way they're doing it. And then you also time it. So you actually set a timer for 20 minutes. And it's really important to time it because then they get to own that time. It becomes their time, and they know they can depend on you. Because what happens in our culture a lot is that we as parents, as moms and dads, we spend lots of great time with our children. And we take them to the zoo, and we do all these things that we know they're going to enjoy. But we're distracted by so many things. So we are answering the phone, we're sending, I just have to send a text to who's ever meeting us here, or and we're doing this and that, and if we're at home, we're cooking dinner, we even jump up to go to the bathroom or go get a drink of water. We have all these distractions when we're with our children. They have learned that they cannot depend on our attention. And so what this special time is that's timed is a gift to our child to let them know, I'm not going to get a drink of water. I'm not going to go to the bathroom. I'm not going to cook dinner. I'm not going to even answer the door or pick lint up off the carpet. I am here 100% for you, and I'm going to give you my full attention and enjoy you completely. I've even heard someone say, luxuriate in your child. And that's really what it is. And what a child learns to do is, this helps to build up the connection and also this sense of safety in the relationship too. And a child learns to start to bring things to special time, to try things, like especially with my children anyway. They try lots of physical kinds of things. Like my son has, I can't tell you how many variations of football we have played, and some of them, like, he wants just to run into me and I tackle him, and then there's another one, he wants to be the quarterback and he's scrambling and I'm going after him, and I'm giving him the safety that he can feel when he's also afraid because he's scared because he's scrambling and I'm running after him, but he knows I'm not going to hurt him. And he can have that experience of being afraid, and he can develop more capability in that area. And then we also have one where I sit down on my hands and knees, and he jumps over me. He's the quarterback again. He takes the football, he jumps over me, and then I'm supposed to try to tackle him after he's jumped over me. So all these different things that he just makes up. And he just loves it, and we laugh and we enjoy each other. We get connected more, and it's really, really amazing. And I'll maybe give you another anecdote because I know we're running out of time here. But like with my daughter, so we went through a very challenging time with our divorce, and she became very controlling, and that was how her behaviors showed up. And so when I started implementing and she was extremely controlling, like who sat down first at the dinner table, who walked out the door first, who put on their shoes first, and she would have a tantrum if it wasn't what she wanted. And so it was excruciating to live like that. And so I started doing special time with her, and what she started doing is she would do a board game and she would cheat. She would move her man extra steps. She would keep rolling the dice until she got a bigger number. She would move my person back. And I delighted in the play. And again, I mean, this might sound odd to some people because it's like, are you teaching your child to cheat? But it's actually as you said, Amy, play is the language of children. This was her way of processing her hurt and her lack of control that she had in. She had no say in us getting divorced. She had no say in us moving or the jobs we have. She has no say in so many things in her life. And by her having this little tiny space of, for us it was 15 minutes, where she could actually have complete say, complete control, and I would laugh, I'm like, how did you win already? Or how did you get all those, cards? And I would delight in the play, no matter what. It was incredibly healing for her, incredibly supportive for her. So you just allow whatever happens in special time to happen. And then one last thing about that is that what can sometimes happen at the end of special time is that because what happens in special time is the safety is built up, the connection is built up, the child knows that you're in a really good space and that, and that you have lots of capacity in special time. And so they sometimes can, at the end of special time, have this big disappointment and big feelings about ending special time that brings up also stored emotions that are in their emotional system can show up as well at that time. And so sometimes you have to, it's actually wise to plan a little extra time at the end of special time to be able to then go into stay listening, where you move in close and you give eye contact and you listen to these big feelings, because you're actually helping your child to heal these stored hurts, which are so important for your child to have that kind of support.
Yeah. I love, the stay listening and the listening partnerships. They're like mirrors of each other, really.
They are. They really are.
And I think when you start to do that, when you start to be heard through the listening partnerships, you start to understand, wow, my kid just really needs to be heard.
Yeah.
So powerful. And it's hard. It's hard sometimes not to just want to fix it. Oh, you're upset. Here, have some water, or, just let me fix it for you. But it's not helpful. Just like it's not helpful when people try to fix things for us.
Exactly.
That's so great. So if you have any questions, again, you can use the chat box, or if you sort of scroll your mouse over to the left of the screen, there's a Q&A, and you can post questions there. And then you'll go back to the webinar jam in order to get back to the chat box. And while we're waiting for people to ask questions, Kristen, do you want to tell them about what else you offer?
Yeah, that would be great. So, first of all, Hand in Hand, the nonprofit organization out of California, has an amazing website. It's www.handinhandparenting.org, and they have lots and lots of, at least 100 articles. We do free teleseminars about a variety of topics. We have blog posts with basically anecdotes of how parents or instructors have used the tools successfully and solved lots and lots of problems with their children. And we have a series of booklets as well that describe all of our tools and how to handle special issues like reaching for your angry child or healing your children's fears, booklets like that. We also have self-guided video classes. There's, I think, 5 of those at this point. And there's sibling rivalry. There's one on listening partnerships. There's one on sleep. There's a variety of different topics that you can find on the Hand in Hand website. And we also have our core class called Building Emotional Understanding, which is a 6-week class. And that is offered online or in person if you have an instructor in your local market. And we also do one-on-one consultations, and I do those as well. And I also offer lots of classes and talks in the Denver area. So I have 2 Building Emotional Understanding classes coming up here locally in Denver. And I also have one online Building Emotional Understanding class starting on Tuesday, October 14th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. Mm-hmm. And you can get that information, or you can register for that class on the Hand in Hand website. And then you can also find me on Facebook. I post, lots of insightful and helpful information on my Facebook page, and that you can find at Parenting by Connection with Kristen Volk, and that's Kristen, and Volk is V like victory, OLK. And yeah, I put lots of connecting ideas on there, and you can always ask me to post something too. I love it when people ask me to, like someone asked me to post, well, what playlisting ideas would you have for a 9-year-old boy? And so I listed, a whole bunch of different great ideas for a 9-year-old boy, for example. And then you can also email me. So my email address is kristen@parentingbyconnection.net. And I'm happy to address you that way too. So we have a strong belief in support, and we offer lots of free stuff, as well as stuff that we charge for. But it's a huge myriad of things that we offer.
It's really awesome. I love this work. I just discovered parenting, hand-in-hand parenting earlier this year when we did the No Spank Challenge.
Oh, wow.
And so then I signed up for that class for CEUs,
yes.
And was just like, oh, this is just the added information I need to really feel solid. And, I'm already a gentle parent, but to have these tools to help support my daughter in being heard, I was like, of course she needs to be heard. It was such a gift. I could get teary talking about it. It was really awesome. So we don't have any questions yet. I'm going to give it another minute, and I'm going to let y'all know about the rest of our upcoming webinars between now and the end of the year. Okay. It'll be set up just like this. In October, we have Sheila Pye of A Living Family, and she's going to come talk with us about mindful self-care, because as parents, we all need self-care, and it's hard to know how to fit it in our busy lives. Also in October, Megan Barella of Parenting for the Next Generation is going to join us in a conversation about the importance of connecting with our kids and what that really looks like. And then Sheena Hill of Purposeful Parenting Solutions is going to talk to us about emotions and emotional intelligence. Then in November, Kathy Gordon, who's also of Parenting by Connection, is going to come talk about attachment and adoption, developmental trauma, and she's going to share some powerful tools to help overcome the challenges that are central in adoption and attachment. And then Robin Peters Bennett of StopSpanking.org is going to join us, and we're going to talk about the effects of spanking on children and adults, how we can support the efforts to end spanking, and then resources on alternatives to spanking that we can use and we can share with other people. And we have one more in December. Amy Phoenix of Presence Parenting is coming back, and she's going to be here just in time for the holidays. So she can talk to us about how we can enjoy the holidays even when we feel like our families are judging us for choosing to parent peacefully. So I feel like we have such a great lineup, and I'm really excited. People like Kristen, who are giving us some amazing tools for how we can support not only our children but ourselves. And so it's really exciting. Kristen, I'm going to check the Q&A one more time. And such a learning process. Okay.
I don't know where you're at either, so.
Okay, so it looks like that is all. Nobody has any questions. Kristen, do you want to say anything else?
Well, I really thank you for this opportunity, and it's an important topic to really talk about. Divorce is such a hard, devastating experience to go through, and how we can get support for ourselves and support our families and actually do well in that process. And in fact, I mentioned this woman who took my classes regularly, and she became a friend of mine now. She just kept saying, I'm getting a divorce and I'm thriving. That's just like crazy. But it's
wow.
True. And so it's really amazing what these tools can do and how they can support us, and we all deserve that. We really do deserve it. Yeah.
It's, I have a few friends going through a divorce, and I would love for them to say, this is so hard and I'm thriving. That would just warm me up.
Yeah.
We have one question. Andrea asks, I don't know if you can see them, so I'm just going to read it out loud.
Scroll down the chat, or where do I find them?
Yeah, if you go up to the chat and push the chat.
Yes.
So Andrea, and then does it show up there? Can you see it?
Well, I see. Okay, there we go. How would a mom of two younger girls, that one?
You want to read that one out loud?
How would a mom of two younger girls, 5 and 7, implement play listening techniques and be able to give each child their own time with mom?
That's a great question.
It is a great question. So you can definitely, I'm not sure I understand the question completely, but I think that you're asking about play listening and special time, perhaps, when you talk about your own time with mom. Because with play listening, it is not done. It can be done in a group, for example. I mean, it can be done with both of your children. Special time, the ideal scenario is to do it one-on-one, to really help to fill that child's connection cup. So just first with play listening, yes, you can do that all day long. And I mean, let me see if I can think of any kind of ideas on how I implement. It's just usually I actually do a lot of, I sort of pepper my morning with play is how I think of it. And it's really helped us to get out the door much better. And so it might look like, there's the rough housing component of it. So I might actually come up to one of my children and just, hug them and shake them and grrr, how are you today, matey? Use a foreign accent or talk like a pirate, or those things always work. Well, anyway, in my experience, they work tremendously with children when you use a strange voice or in that way, and so that's one. Especially my son loves that kind of rough housing kind of thing, and then or sometimes I'll sing, like, what would you like for breakfast? I'll start to sing, and then they'll start laughing and being goofy about it. And then sometimes, like my daughter maybe would tell me to stop singing. She'll be like, stop. And then in play listening, I give her the more powerful role. So then I'd stop. But then I'd act like I really have to sing or I'm going to burst. So that's one way we would do that. And even, it's funny, even tripping and falling, kids think that's like one of the funniest things in the world. And if I don't know what to do, I'll just like trip and fall and see what happens, and get that laughter going. So it's a matter of just allowing the laughter to come and being adventurous yourself to create laughter with your children. And so the more you do it, the more it just comes naturally. And then with the special time, in terms of getting their own time with mom, and that's definitely a challenge when you're a single parent. And the way I've pretty much handled that is that so we're always together, the three of us, and you can figure out scenarios too where a neighbor might help and take one child, for example, or you could invite a friend over where you rotate all the children, and even doing the third child who came over. Giving them special time, that can be helpful, or arranging play dates can be helpful too. For me, I have typically just said, okay, if we're going to do the other child there, we call it playtime, and so it's not exactly special time, but then they still have to ask for permission to join our group. I mean, to join in doing special time, and it's always yes. But they have to acknowledge that this is like the special time child. So this child gets to make all the decisions. They get to play it their way. They get to do it their way. And so we really I've sort of included like if it was my son doing special time, I sort of include my daughter in like trying to get her to delight in him. And he's the leader. He's the one who makes all the decisions. And it's not the most perfect way of doing it, but it works. it really does work. And he loves having her in a lot of our special times because he's like, well, I need someone to pass the ball to when we're playing football. So, and then I also I do special time sometimes at night, like after my daughter who's younger actually goes to bed after my older son, and we always do special time, 8 minutes of special time every night as well, and that is always one-on-one. She just needs extra special time. And so she gets this extra bit at night after my son has gone to bed. And so, yeah, I try to find these little nooks and crannies of when I can do it individually, but otherwise I do it as the three of us when I, because it's just practical, a practical way of doing it. But I also make sure I give extra attention to that child whose, playtime or special time it is. And I delight in them, and I don't let myself be distracted by the other child either. And I might put a hand out to the other child so they know I'm there or something like that, and I'm still thinking about them, but I'm really like right there for my special time child. Yeah. That's a great question.
It is. We have one other question by here. He asks, how about time sharing through divorce? And I'm not sure if he can expand on that a little bit, or if you might have an idea, or if it's maybe a little bit about also what Andrea was talking about.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means actually. Yeah, I don't know if that has to do with parenting time, or I don't know.
Right. All right. I am not seeing any more questions right now. And I just love this. I love all these tools. I think they're so amazing.
Yeah.
And the questions always, I think, help clarify. So
yeah.
Thank you for fielding those.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. It's like I said before, divorce is just really, really challenging and really hard, and we all deserve to be supported.
Yeah.
It's very important, and the job of parenting is so important that being lifted up in this way is I'd like to see every parent have that kind of support.
Yeah, me too. Well, for those of you who are on, y'all will be getting a follow-up email with a link to watch the replay and with some more information on how to find Kristen and hand-in-hand parenting. So we got another question. It's about 1:15. Do you want to try one more, Kristen?
Yeah, I could do another one.
Okay. So we have a question. How do you keep the younger child entertained while helping an older child with homework?
So yeah, and that's a great question too. And I mean, I think that's kind of related to the challenge of having multiple kids. And the ideal scenario would be, I can think of two ways. One is you give the younger child special time prior to doing homework with the older child. So again, that special time fills up the connection cup so they can play more independently. So that's one way of doing it. The other way that I can think of too is if when you're doing homework with the older child is to have some sort of play listening games or ideas in your back pocket with the younger child. So because play listening also builds the connection, and so if you can keep that connection, I would even say the idea that's coming to my mind, I've actually never done this, but I'd be like, I would get a string and I would give one end of the string to the younger child, and I would sit down and do homework with the older child, and I would say, okay, I'm going to help the older child with homework right now, but whenever you need me, pull the string. And then and see what happens, and I would even maybe, like, if the child pulls the string and I would obviously give them something to do to try to keep them entertained at that point or doing active. But if they pull the string, I would like fall off my chair. Like, wow, oh my gosh. And that's giving them the more powerful role. And they would laugh and they would love that. And you might even try that before you get into the homework a little bit so the child can go through that experience of being powerful. They might want to do it a few times. But then, you know, and I know as a parent, we oftentimes think, oh my God, I'm going to be doing this all day long, you know. But in actuality, what they really need is your connection. And so when they feel you, when they're feeling that sense of you, they can actually let go a little bit. And so so I would try that beforehand, you know, maybe even in a non-homework situation first, and then bring it to the homework situation and see what happens. You know, and there's lots of different ways that you could, again, use play listening to create that connection. But I would sort of every, you know, 5 to 10 minutes be throwing connection at your younger child to keep them, you know, doing well and feeling close to you, because that's really what they need. So yeah. And I guess one other thing is with my younger daughter, I give her homework. You know, it's not really a play listening idea necessarily, but you know, we make up her own little homework that she does at the table too, and she feels important and connected with us. So it's more of a connecting idea than any specific tool. But I'm like, okay, what's your homework going to be? And we make up something for her too, and she sits with us, and we all do it together.
Nice. I love that you invite her to come up with that. What's your homework going to be?
Yeah, yeah. And she loves it.
Yeah.
In fact, at this point, she's copying my son's homework, and then she does his too. So and it does create a good rhythm too for our family. Like, this is what we do. We all do it together, and supportive, and it's nice.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, I think we should wrap it up. Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you everybody for being here. You know, I know this is an important topic, and like Kristen continues to say, everyone deserves to feel supported and to have the support they need so that you can lead your family through this and with your relationships intact with your children. So thank you, Kristen. Thank you everybody for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.